Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True, and joining me today, he just finished up his breakfast of scrambled eggs and some deep-fried tadpoles. It's Justin Hausman!
You know, I hadn't thought about the fact that could just eat these frogs when they turn into frogs.
Just protein, Betty. Just straight up protein.
Our little tadpoles have legs now, though. They just sprouted legs as of yesterday, yeah. Which apparently
means...
Has
PETA showed up at your door yet? Did it kind of,
I don't know. They might, because apparently once they have legs is when they start to get, like, carnivorous. And so there's 3 little tiny bass in there. And I guess the tadpoles will eat each other if they don't have enough meat source. So I'm hoping that the fish flakes counts is enough, because I'm not going to, like, dangle. I'm not going to, like, put some ground beef in this water or anything, so...
Well, wait a minute. You're feeding like bass like tropical fish flakes from like the pet store?
Yeah, that's what they suggest. They're just fish.
Really? They're
fish. I mean, it's just like ground up other fish in the fish flakes, I think.
Oh, okay.
But we're gonna when the tadpoles are like close-ish to frog situation, we'll bring them and let them go where we got them.
Well, should you do it sooner if they're gonna start eating the each other or the fish?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll find out. This is our first time.
You should film it and put it to cage match, it's like sound effects.
I don't think that's
a
good idea for my career as like a nice person.
Like you're the one who caught them.
They're fine. They're probably way. I mean, honestly, like I think it's a tiny amount of like tadpoles that actually make it to like maturity.
That's a good point.
So they're probably like safer here. They seem
how many of these would be dead if you hadn't?
Yeah, there's just like egrets and shit everywhere, just like looking for them constantly. It's amazing.
It's a brutal world out there,
dude. It's gnarly. Oh, dudes with plastic nets just snatching you from your house.
Like they had just gotten away from the egret, and then here you come with your net. Like, oh god damn it!
What's amazing? I hadn't thought about this right now. But what's amazing is like my favorite environment on the planet is like little like pleasant freshwater systems. So whether that's like a creek or even just like this like really pretty little wetland where we got these ones from, and it's just it's only there for like 3 months out of the year, and then it's like a mud pit, and then it's just dirt for the rest of the year. But right now it's very pleasant. It's like the water's like probably 70. It's like 8 inches deep. There's reeds everywhere. There's shade. It's like you want to live in there. And the whole time we're like getting the tadpoles, we're like, God, I wish I could live in here. Anyway, let's remove them.
Let's take them back to our house and put them in a glass case. This is gonna be great.
Anyway, yeah, kids love them.
All right, well. Today, we're going to run through some of the more notable or exciting headlines to come out of the outdoor industry and community. But before we get to that, if you just joined the Rock Fight, please follow the show wherever you're listening, whether that's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please click follow so you are subscribed and you never miss an episode. Then head over to rockfight.co. We've got a lot of things for you to do today. And sign up for our newsletter that comes out every Sunday. It includes stuff like typically our Justin Hausman retrospective. I don't think there's going to be a rose-colored Hausman this week, but maybe next week, as well as a bunch of other goodies like outdoor industry news. So go to rockfight.co, click join the mailing list. Lastly, hey, you want to pick a fight with the Rock Fight? Maybe send us an email. Just say hello. Make a suggestion for something that Justin could do over the weekend. We love like picking up small creatures and putting them in tanks. We love hearing from our listeners. So send your emails to myrockfight@gmail.com. And then lastly, before we kind of get into it, coming up at the end of this episode, friend of the Rock Fight and Paddling Magazine's Joe Potoczak is going to join us to talk about the discovery of Thomas Robison in the Grand Canyon. Justin and I talked about the story a couple weeks back after he was discovered missing, and Joe has been leading the coverage for this over at Paddling Magazine. So he sat down with Justin and I to go a little deeper into what we know about that story. So that's what I got there. But did you know, Justin?
Yes.
Do you know what month it is?
It's May.
Correct.
Yes.
Moving on. No, it is May. You're right about that. But it's also National Bike Month.
National Bike Month. That is true.
Yeah.
You know what's great is that they've changed National Bike to Work Day to National Bike to Wherever Day because so many of us folks are remote working.
So like you just go out in your driveway and do a lap.
Just
do hey, I'm
circles.
here.
Yeah. I think was that yesterday? Bike to Work or whatever day?
As someone who also works from home, I don't know. I did participate in a Bike to Work day back when I was working at Timberland like 20 years ago. I did that once. That was fun. It was cool. They had like aid stations set up. I was going to say, get there.
Yeah, I had to take my daughter to her to a doctor's appointment yesterday, and there were little aid stations around town. I'm like, oh, that must be what that's about.
That's what that is.
I pulled into one.
Nobody showing up.
I pulled into one of my truck. Just like, hey, let me get what I got. Danish, a little banana situation. I normally bike. I'll bike later, but.
Sir, no, it's fine. I have a bike.
It's fine. I have
I'm hungry.
Bikes. Yeah.
But I got a quiz for you. I got a little bike quiz for you to
it.
celebrate National Month, Bike Month. So, okay. So what was the year in which National Bike Month was established?
Ooh.
This one surprised me, actually.
That's a good one. I wasn't that off with Earth Day.
You're pretty good. You were within like 5 or 6 years, I think. You were in the 70s, which is when it was.
I want to feel like I want to say it's in the 90s. I'm trying to think if there's anything that like would have kicked this off or like something specific that would have happened. I don't know. The 90s feels right.
You're just gonna pick a decade?
No, I'm gonna try to pick a year here. Hold on. I don't know. 98.
That's kind of what I would have said too. 1956.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yep. Established in 1956. National Bike Month is a chance to show. Yeah, I don't know. They don't give you much more than that, but that's what's on the website.
That is amazing. That's incredible.
It's also kind of sad that we're probably not better at biking in this country, considering how long we've been trying to make it a thing.
Dude, the people were. Imagine how annoyed you were in the 50s.
Imagine.
You're like the one person in town with a bike. We should be on these. Get out of here, communist.
Yeah, like these guys in like giant Chevys. God. Get out of the way.
Wow, gas was basically free. That's amazing.
Right?
That's
a long time ago.
I speaking of cool bike. Well, sorry. Continue with your quiz.
Okay. So roughly how many bikes are manufactured every year?
Where, in America or worldwide?
Global.
Whoa. Well, I mean, Jesus, this is going to be a random stab in the dark. Like 100 million?
That nailed it on the nose. Yeah. Nice job. Did you Google that?
No, that feels about right to me.
Yeah.
Which is an absurd amount of bikes every year.
How many cars do you think we made? I should look that up.
Well, that's why, because my first thought was like, I don't know, like 10 million, but then like, I think we make like 10 million F-150s every year. So it's got to be like way more than that. So,
and there's like 1 billion bike owners in the world. Like, I mean, it's like a lot of people own a bike, okay, so, if you think relative to the population.
All right, now I have to mention this. So we'll go back to the quiz in a sec. But last night on Seth's Bike Hacks, or not Seth's Bike Hacks, that's what his show used to be called, on Burn Peak Express, Seth Alvo, you know who that, we've talked about him, right?
Yeah. We should get him on.
We should. He did the coolest segment I've really seen. Have you ever heard of Buffalo Bikes? Buffalo Bicycles?
Only because I saw the thumbnail of the video. I haven't watched it yet. So no, but
okay,
I was the first I'd ever heard of it.
It's amazing. So it's this brand that you can't buy them here. They're basically for like Africa and maybe like South America, places where people really need like dependable transportation.
Yeah.
They're like marvels of engineering, but not in the way that you would think. They're all steel. Everything is steel. Like everything. The rim, the wheels are steel. Like
you have my attention.
Yeah. But it's like not like chromoly steel. It's like gnarly, heavy steel. And the reason why is because like people use these for literally everything. So you can like they're if you use like thin walled like chromoly steel, like it's really hard to weld stuff onto it. People like weld things onto these bikes, so it has to be like really thick, like gnarly steel. It comes with like steel racks on the back that are weighted to like 250 pounds. Every single thing on there is meant to be able to be turned with like a regular box wrench. So like there's no like hex key stuff. It's all like traditional like hexagonal like bolts. For like
what's
everything.
The base weight of a
55 pounds. They're heavy.
Wow.
But they have a servo brake, which I don't even know what that is, on the front, and then a coaster brake on the back. They're single speed. They use this like gnarly chain that he called a BMX chain because he said, I've only ever seen these on BMX bikes. And he held up like a regular like eagle like chain, like a SRAM eagle, and it's like that looks like a paperclip compared to the chain on the bike. But the whole idea is that they're like forever serviceable and they're easy to service. And so it's like you give them to people in Africa. And they can have it like forever, and you don't need.
It's like getting a car, basically.
Yeah, and you're like
it runs forever.
Yeah, but you're probably, if you have one of these, you're probably really far away from a bike shop and really far away from a mechanic, and so the whole point is that like theoretically, pretty much anybody can like fix them, and with tools that you already have, and they for like every 100 that are sold in an area, they like send a bike like a trained Buffalo bike person out there to kind of show people how to work on them.
No way.
And they're only like $165.
That was going to be my next question. But we can't get them here? Like, you couldn't order one?
Nope.
Dude, you need to like get into this and get one. You need to review one for AJ, like or for Gear and Beer. Like we got to get our hands on one of these bikes.
I'd never heard of them before, and it was just like, what a cool thing. Like
if you got your hands on one of these, I would drive up just to like so we could both ride it around and then talk about it on the podcast.
Well, Seth loved it. He's like, the ride's pretty good. It's all steel, so like it's pretty compliant, and like it's kind of meant for riding on like dirt roads and stuff. And like the tires are Kenda, but they're made for that bike, so they're like burly and really puncture resistant and thick. But most of the footage of people riding them are in Africa. I think that's probably their biggest market. But it was really, really cool. Check them out, Buffalo Bikes.
Well, good segue back to the quiz. I assume this would apply to all bikes, including a bike like that. But true or false, a bike doesn't need a rider?
What does that even mean?
Can the bike? Do you need for a bike to have locomotion? I suppose. Does someone need to be riding it?
Well, I mean,
True.
I would say false because I've seen video of animals riding bikes. I've seen footage of like a monkey's riding a bike.
The answer is true. As long as the bike is going 8 miles per hour, it will stay upright and go on its own.
Oh, that's interesting. Any bike, or that's like the general physics thing.
I guess that's general. That's why I thought I'm like, oh, well, will that apply to the Buffalo bike? Does it need to be going like 15 miles per hour because it's so heavy? It will just fall over if it's going slower.
That's it. So 8 miles an hour must be the speed at which you can comfortably take your hands off the handlebars without it just like careening
that makes
around
a lot
wildly.
Of sense.
Yeah.
Which I still am never really comfortable doing.
Oh,
I don't see like.
Man, I have to do that. Like after a long ride, I have to sit up with like no hands on them.
No, I do it, but when I see like the Tour de France riders like barreling across the finish line at 80,000 miles per hour,
true,
like I'm like I would never like.
They're a little bit better at riding bikes than you. Is the thing.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, the other day I was riding home and like after a mountain bike ride, and so I'm just kind of sitting up, just to breathe, really, just to get more like air, just and just kind of relaxing. Right. And there's like some swoopy turns, and every time I do that with no hands, I'm like, I wonder how sharp can I turn before disaster strikes. I've never fallen off a bike while I was at least not as an adult because I didn't have my hands on the bars.
If it was anybody else, I'd tell you to push that. But knowing your history, I'd say don't find out. Just be okay with that, not knowing that one.
I'm definitely due for a big fall. Definitely.
I'm glad it didn't happen when we were riding together.
Yeah.
All right, next one, true or false? Another true and false. Cyclists are cool, and this is not like a subjective like, oh, that's funny. Like, this is a legit question. Cyclists are cool. True or false?
I would say true.
True.
Okay.
A 2014 psychological study found that cyclists tend to demonstrate a unique blend of intelligence, generosity, and the, quote, cool factor.
That's interesting. So I wrote a story. It wasn't like I did the research. I wrote a story about some research that had been done, I think last year on the AJ blog, where they did all these they did some tests where people that rode bikes displayed more altruism and more community spirit and were more likely to participate in politics, far more likely to participate in local politics. And the takeaway was they care more about their community. But what's interesting is that's these sorts of studies are always going to be like chicken or the egg. It's like, does the bike make you that way, or were you already that way to begin with? And you therefore you prefer to ride a bike around because you don't want to be isolated in a car, or you are aware of transportation issues or this, that, the other thing. But it's interesting.
Maybe mountain bikers weren't incled because then they would have the guy who yells at the equestrians and
I think I think it's bikes that cause it, because it's I didn't used to ride a bike. I've always had kind of always had one, but years where I probably never rode a bike at all. And then once I got into mountain biking, and then I got into having a cargo bike for daily stuff, that completely changed everything about how I think about transportation and how I prefer to get around and all that stuff. So I think the bike actually does cause this, but that's interesting.
All right, last question is the best food to eat after a mountain bike ride is what?
Burrito.
Fuck yeah, it is. All right, that's the bike quiz.
Saltier the better.
All right, here we go. So let's get into some headlines and keeping the bike theme going. The first story we have today is a story that was on bikerumor.com. It reported on a new product that can actually help out bike commuters called The Remarkable. It's a helmet by a brand called Gamel. And this helmet has integrated lighting and turn signals that are activated by nodding your head. The helmet also features an automatic brake-like function. The Remarkable was first brought to market by Kickstarter, that is now available to buy on their website. The website's in French, so I don't know if they're shipping to the U.S. yet, but it's listed at €207, which is about $224. I think it actually looks kind of dope. I've seen a lot of other. Yeah, you see some of those inflatable helmets and things like that just people try to do something interesting with, and it looks terrible. This just kind of looks like a basic commuter helmet, or if a little frankly Tronish from the movie Tron.
It does look like Tron. It looks a lot like what is that brand? Shit. I don't remember. I have a bike helmet that looks just like this without the lights. The video of the guy turning left,
a Nutcase or a 888 or something like that.
It's not those brands, but yeah, the video of the guy turning left is kind of funny.
How he moves his head to kind of go.
It's pretty exaggerated. Do you really have to move your head that much?
I don't know, but I mean that part maybe you can get a little critical of, but I like the intention. I mean, when I was living in Seattle, it made me think of this because that's a big bike commuter town. A lot of people ride bikes in that city, but it's also rainy and dark there for a lot of the years.
Yeah.
So a lot of the year. So something like this, I feel just kind of provides a huge safety upgrade, and it kind of does it in a way that you don't look completely like a tool wearing.
One of my favorite parts. So he's obviously in Paris during this video. One of my favorite parts about any video of Paris, if you spent any amount of time there, you're like, I've been there. I've been to that corner because it all kind of looks the same. Like as he's turning left, I'm like, I know I've been to that little bakery. I don't. Okay, so I don't love this, and I'll tell you why.
Because you hate safety.
I hate safety. No, it's so I have a new rad power bike that has turn signals, and which is cool, but only in the back. But it actually has like a turn signal indicator. So I use it. I don't know if anybody can tell, but it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. Like the light that's on in the back like flashes to the left or flashes to the right, which I think is great. But like hand signals work great. Like hand signals are like I'm not sure what problem this is solving.
But it's two things though, right? It's the integrated lighting and the signals. It's not just the signals. So because you don't have to use the signals if you don't want to. You don't have to do the. You don't have to like.
So it's integrated lighting. So it has. Okay, I didn't really think about that. So it basically has like a headlamp function all the time.
And then a brake light in the back.
I mean, I guess you could, but you could also just have those things for like $10 each and not have a $250 helmet.
But it's all in there. I think you're more noticeable. Like, think about that. Think about when you were riding your bikes in San Francisco. If it was like a dark, kind of rainy day, and you're in the bike lane. It's just more options for people to see you.
Yeah, but okay, I guess.
I don't think $224 is a lot for. I mean, it is a lot. I mean, you can get bike helmets for way cheaper.
I just can't. I can like if I'm at a bike shop right now and I'm like I got a new bike. It doesn't have any lights on it, and I want to get fully lit up here and be protected. I'm going to look at that helmet if they had it, and it's like okay, with tax it's $250, or like.
Here's 17 things.
This little brake light.
Why do you have that on your desk?
Because I was charging it. I'm holding up like a little USB chargeable brake light that has like a very simple rubber strap that goes around whatever you want. Usually my seat post that blinks and does all kinds of cool shit.
But now you got $15. The hassle of adding all your stuff on. You got to make more stuff. Like this is kind of streamlining all of it. Like I think this is the beginning of a world where I think this wins.
Do you really want to be riding down the street and be like Night at the Roxbury style, just like bopping your head around?
Well, once Elon gets his brain implant thing going, we can just connect it. You can just think turn signal and it'll click on.
So have you seen the Clint Eastwood movie Firefox?
No, I'm not.
I think that's what it's called, and I'm pretty sure it's Clint Eastwood. It's like from the early '80s or something, and he steals like a Russian super advanced fighter plane, and you control it with your thoughts. So yeah, like once you have the helmet on, you're just like shoot missile, just out goes a missile or whatever. But that I mean, if it was like that somehow, that would be cool. But I just think that's silly. Honestly, at the end of the day, just like it is a full Night at the Roxbury situation. Just hey, I don't know.
Every time you ride,
I'd almost rather. I guess I get having it at your head. I'd almost rather have like a little thumb switch and like maybe the light goes off on the head or something like that.
Yeah.
But having to like nod your head is kind of wild.
I in no way think this is a 10 out of 10 no notes finished product, right? I think there's a lot that can be improved here, but I see this going in the right way because I mean a little bit of like just the practicality of like you said, like what you have right now. It's easy, but it's a lot of individual solutions.
It also makes you wear a helmet. I mean, I don't wear a helmet around town most of the time, so it's like.
Well, now we're getting down to it. Like we said, you hated safety. You hate safety.
Well, no, but there is plenty of research out there that shows that helmets don't really do much. Like there really is. Like no, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Like in terms of
you want to give us your thoughts on smoking? Is that
overall in terms of like injuries per year or even fatalities? I think maybe it's like fatalities or something like that. Like it doesn't really seem to have. I swear to God, I've read this like a million times where it doesn't really seem to have like a giant measurable effect. It also has the effect of making people think biking is dangerous and like fewer people like this is like when you go to like the Netherlands and like nobody wears a helmet ever. And there's 8 million people on bikes. And it's like I would always wear a helmet if I lived where you live or something where I'm riding on boulevards where people are going like 45 miles an hour. I would absolutely wear a helmet. But like around my town or in Paris, no way.
Do you make your kids wear a bike helmet?
Of course.
Well, double standard.
They're not. It's not. They can decide when they're old enough whether or not they want to wear a helmet.
But they never will because they'll have grown up wearing helmets.
I always wear. Well, right. But like if I'm riding the bike with them, I'm always wearing a helmet. Yeah. Like I want them to see that that's like what they should do. But if it's just me like riding around town, I never wear a helmet.
You save your hypocrisy for your own time.
It's not hypocrisy. You're not listening to me. It's not. It's just as safe.
I'm kidding. I know what you're saying. I'm just teasing you.
Yeah, and so like I wouldn't want to be like, like I'd rather just have the lights on my bike and wear a helmet. That's my take. Also, I can't really imagine people in France like wearing this because it's gonna fuck your hair up so bad to have this helmet on all the time.
I think though, if you play this out long term, I get what you're saying, and I see even the argument for the smaller lights or whatever. I think this wins long term though, because it's one stop shopping. You just got to throw it on. Now you've got lights, you've got turn signals, you get everything. If you can improve the sort of wonky nature of how to turn them on, and you're a bike commuter every day, it's just simpler, know. And I think right now at $224, the price will probably come down over time.
Yeah, why is it that expensive? Oh, because of the sensors.
Well, because of the brain implant.
I don't think brake lights on a bike are very functional. I don't really see the point of that.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, that I don't even understand, too. Like, does it just sense if you're slowing down and it kind of flips on, I imagine is what that is. Yeah. But I think most, I don't know, like, I would do it just for the convenience of like, oh, I don't have to grab 3 extra lights now and slap them on my back or on my bike if I don't want to.
Let me ask you this. Do you use your turn signals while you're driving?
Oh.
Every time? Every time?
There are definitely... There are definitely occasions but I always feel bad if I forget. I'm a big nice blinker asshole guy.
Okay, good. That's great.
I say that a lot. Yeah, nice blinker.
Okay. All right, good.
All right. Well, the next story we got is according to the Half Moon Bay Review, a Bay Area woman, Amy Gubser, made history by becoming the first known person to swim outbound from the Golden Gate Bridge to is it Farallon?
Farallon, yeah.
Farallon Islands. It's a nearly 30-mile open water swim through water temps in the upper 40s and lower 50s. And in waters known to be
cold lately, folks. It's been really cold. So it was probably like 48 and through a lot of that swim.
That's really cold. The waters are known to be a popular place, too, for sharks. And it took her 17 hours. 5 other swimmers have made this swim, but they've done it inbound. So from the islands to the bridge, they could take advantage of the inbound currents. You sent this one over, man. What was it that struck you about this story?
This is easily the gnarliest thing you could do on the planet. Like, this really is. I swear to God. Like, I don't know.
Is it remarkable?
I mean, I guess you could swim like from whatever the like strait is from like South America to Antarctica, and that would be gnarlier. But I mean, like for like things that are actually doable, like this is a horrifically gnarly thing to do, and I can't believe anyone's ever done it, let alone 6
or would want to do it.
Well, if you don't know the Bay Area, like the Farallons are, they're also called like the Devil's Teeth because they're just like these. There's like no life on them. Well, that's not true. There's like a shitload of birds and like seals, but they're just like these rocky.
Heard the Arctic Cowboys are hanging out.
Yeah, they probably are. These like rocky. Just seeing what the bird migration is all about. These like rocky, pointy, evil-looking peaks. There's not like trees. There's not like anything nice about them. And it is like that's where you go to look for great whites. Like the great whites all over the place. Like just circling the freaking islands.
What the hell?
Yeah, because there's seals just like roost out there, and it like you can see them on clear days, and they're even from like a long way away, they don't look pleasant. Like they look pointy. They look like shark's teeth sticking out of the ocean. I mean, I've been around the ocean my entire life. The currents and everything that goes through the Golden Gate is so insane. Like it is absolutely ungodly insane, and so it's not a pleasant place to be in the ocean. I mean, even like on a really nice day at Ocean Beach. You still are like aware that you're basically sitting in the middle of the ocean. It's like being at Hawaii because there's just nothing. There's just thousands of miles of open ocean in front of you. There's there's nothing to protect you from. You're just the shore. It's really deep, really close to the shore. So anyway, it's just a horrific thing, and like that is so far. And there's always swell. It doesn't matter. There's always swell. So you're swimming through like big swell, and there's been swell lately. It's been windy as shit lately. So it would have been really miserable out there. I interviewed a woman named Kim Chambers, and it was actually the first story I ever wrote for Adventure Journal, I think. And she was the first woman to do the swim, and kind of the best documented one. But I guess I didn't realize this until we talked about it this morning. She jumped into the Farallons and swam to San Francisco. And there's been a few other people that have done that, and they usually end up like drifting. Like I think most people end up drifting north, like into Marin, just because of the way the currents are. But having to hit that island, insane.
Yeah.
But people like look it up. I mean, this is like when I wrote the story about Kim Chambers, I think she's done all the big 7 swims. I forget what they are. The Strait of Gibraltar, I think, is one. The English Channel is one. There's a bunch of like big swims, and I think she's done them all. But everyone who's done them all is like the Farallon one to the Golden Gate is like that's like the worst swim you could do. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievably gnarly. So kudos to this lady. It's insane.
It's weird to think about like how the hierarchy of like what's hard. Like I mean, you saying that, right? This is the gnarliest thing you can do in the world. Like, and I know you're hyperbolic, exaggerating a little bit, but
Not that much.
You know, you're probably not that much, right? Because I mean, you think so much stuff is so easy to kind of digest visually. You're like, oh my god, that's gnarly. And this kind of like, oh, she swam to an island. You know, oh, it's 30 miles. That sounds really long. And you kind of go about your day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I sent you that Instagram video the other day of that guy kind of traversing like a knife, like not even a knife's edge.
Like,
I mean, what do you call that?
I don't even know. But like physically, I am capable of that. Mentally, I'm not. Like
this video was these guys on skis, and it's on like I don't know.
Oh,
like
that.
a 12-inch bike.
I thought you meant the bike one, but yeah. The ski one was even worse.
Yeah, then it was the bike one too. But there are these things when you see where even if you do these sports that we participate in, you have an immediate aversion, and you say no, never. Right? That's just, you. I think you responded back, why in all capitals. Yeah. And this on its surface is like, oh, that's cool. She swam to an island, you know, and you kind of go on with your day, and then to kind of when you really do break it down, what she did. It's incredible.
I mean, I haven't. Presumably, I didn't read the article. I just, heard that it happened, and I know enough about it to understand how impressive.
We do our research here on the Rock Fight.
Presumably, she had a chase boat, a support boat.
She did. Yeah, she had support, and she stopped to eat and drink water and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, she just went for 17 hours.
What's crazy is like you have to. Kim Chambers talked about how she had to gain weight before the swim because you want like an extra layer of fat because you're obviously in really cold water, and she probably wasn't in a wetsuit. I'd be shocked if she was. That they usually don't wear wetsuits on these big swims, which is wild to me. I think chafing is a major issue, but that's also a major issue without. Like you spend that much time in the salt water, and like you just start getting sores anyway. So they have to like cover themselves in like weird grease and stuff like that, so they don't get major sores. But just think about
that's like my Saturday night, being covered in weird grease so I don't get sores.
Think about how mentally crazy it must be to be like 15 miles out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And just aware of how deep it is below you and like what's down there. I mean, like just like talk about like a gut, like a primal fear. Oh
yeah, the sharks are almost like an icing on the cake here. It's like it's scary no matter what.
But it's like,
oh, hey, by the way,
like I mean, you have a boat, so I guess you're fine. But like even knowing that there's a boat there, I would be on the verge of panic all the time. Like, what if I just stop? What if I just sink right here? Oh my god. Terrible.
Well, she did more than 30 miles just because of the way like currents work.
Yeah, I mean, she would have timed. I mean, it's funny that they say that the outgoing tide is pretty gnarly too. So like presumably she went on a low tide or as the tide was dropping. But I don't know how far out to sea do you still get that effect, But
once you're past the land, is it kind of even doing anything?
It's also crazy that like when you talk to anybody who's done this swim, like the worst part by far is getting in at the Farallons because there's giant sharks out there and like it's not pleasant. So like that being your target is almost weirder to me. Because it's like, at least if you're swimming away from it, the closer you get to San Francisco, the safer it is. There's not really sharks in San Francisco.
And then you get the added benefit of when you're your most tired, you're going to get a push.
Yeah, and you're like swimming to a continent. So it's like, you can't really miss it, But like the islands, it's like the closer that you get, kind of the worse it gets. Like the currents are bad. I don't know where they picked her up. I don't know if she actually touched the rock or whatever, but like.
Right. Well, according to The Guardian, Justin, do you know where the new hotspot for outdoor recreation is in the United States?
Oklahoma.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
It isn't where there are notable mountain ranges, but rather the new place to get outside is the Midwest. Mm-hmm. Using the opening of several new REIs in locations that were previously either undiscovered or unrecognized, journalist Betsy Reed.
By the way, journalist Betsy, like there could not be a better name for a journalist writing about the Midwest than Betsy.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice one-syllable last name. Yeah. Solid. Nice work, Betsy Reed. Turns out, actually, she's British.
What's Betsy short for? Is that like Rebecca?
Elizabeth, I think, right?
Elizabeth, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So she pointed out that outdoor participation in states like Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan have risen more than 6% since 2019. Definitely a pandemic effect, but still it's continuing, which is faster than more typical outdoor states like Colorado, California, and Montana. Another story, Colorado immediately filed suit for trademark infringement and wants their title back.
I bet they did.
But I do feel like, we talk a lot about our local, where we are local here in California a lot on the show, but we've been a friend of the Midwest. We've talked about Kansas. We talked about a few different places. Mm-hmm. I like seeing them get some love. The Midwest is cool.
I haven't spent really much time there other than to drive through it on a cross-country road trip, but I really enjoyed it. And I'm not surprised to hear that. I mean, I think you have to assume a lot of this is remote work.
For sure. I mean, the pandemic helps.
Like people from Colorado and stuff like, oh, I can buy a giant house in Ohio. I don't know. What is the Midwest, by the way?
Ohio is the Midwest. I mean, you can kind of, it's like that Pennsylvania border, like the Appalachian Mountains, and then everything, and the Rocky Mountains and kind of everything in between.
Okay.
I mean, but it's a little misleading, right? Because I don't know. Like, is Texas the Midwest? I mean, yeah, a lot of it is, but there's probably
I
some
don't
other
think
parts that don't seem very Midwest.
No, they would. I would think they would. I mean, Texas probably mostly considers itself the South, right, or its own thing. But anyway,
its own thing, probably.
So
yeah.
there's I would think that there's probably been plenty of people that have decided they could that they'd be just fine in Iowa, and they left like Boulder because it was too expensive or something like that. That's got to be partially the uptick, but at the same time, I mean, outdoor participation is going up everywhere, so of course it would happen in places like that. The cool thing about that is that there's the more people that are doing stuff outdoors, the more like those sorts of areas will get protected and maybe get some, federal monies to like make new parks and maybe make new campgrounds and all that kind of stuff, which is fantastic. But I know there's really good fly fishing in Iowa, for example, which I wouldn't know that other than the fact I know a guy who's been there and loves to go there and just for that purpose. And so there's probably all kinds of like little gems of cool. I mean, we already know Kansas is a great like gravel state for gravel riding.
Big for that.
So I think that's awesome. I mean, I would love to do. I would rather go to Iowa to go fly fishing than Colorado, just for the like not necessarily the novelty, but I kind of know what I'm going to get in Colorado. I have no idea what it's going to be like in Iowa.
Well, I think this is a good marker of the expansion of sort of the outdoor experience, or like the kind of anything outside, anything that's outside is outdoor.
Yeah,
now,
it doesn't
right?
need to be in the mountains.
Well, right. I think honestly, you're like thinking about what your personal preferences are. Like, you really value the small town vibe, the kind of ability to walk places, and it's like, well, and even Marin is not a largely mountainous area, right? So it's an interesting comp, frankly, because like a lot of these places maybe they have incredible towns with cool little restaurants and everything, but hey, guess what? They open up an awesome bike park like not that far away. Oh, and like you just said, I can get a house for less than $1 million. Like, all right, I don't need the ocean. I'm good. You know, like it kind of checks a lot of boxes. Whereas previously, you were almost kind of like looked down on if you didn't want to like live in a mountain town.
Absolutely.
If you were in our community. So I think this is a good sign.
Probably cooler now to be in a place like, I keep saying Iowa because like Minnesota probably doesn't count. That's like more like Great Lakes, but parts of Minnesota might.
Midwest. That's
but like
upper Midwest.
They have a lot going on already outdoors. You know that is already the case. But like I have, every once in a while you'll see some random like climbing area in Illinois. You're like, what? And there's like, that happens all the time. And so there's obviously a ton of undiscovered stuff for those of us who have always lived in places that are already kind of known for being outdoorsy.
Right.
I would much rather take a tour of that kind of thing than like the big famous spots out west. Like, no question about it.
All right, last thing, and then we'll get into our conversation with Joe. So one news out of the industry this week that I thought was interesting. There was announced that I called them professional footwear mimic Skechers is collaborating with John Deere. And yes, that John Deere. It's a new global partnership for a collection of footwear that'll debut this July. According to SGB, this line will be, wait for it, for agricultural professionals, construction workers, outdoor enthusiasts, and if that's not enough, also trendsetters.
I could see that. Definitely could see that.
It's a shoe for absolutely everyone. That'll be the coolest shoe ever.
I could absolutely see that being a big deal in like the normcore world. John Deere shoes.
I think it's a smart collaboration. I mean, I know that there are people working in like ag and construction that are probably already wearing Skechers. So I think it makes a ton of sense between the brands.
Yeah, why would that be like an outdoor thing though?
Well, that's what I mean. You're trying to lure in like the outdoor, like let's just put everybody in the
Does Skechers make outdoor shoes? I mean,
yeah, they make
I don't
everything.
know.
Right?
I actually have no idea what Skechers makes.
Well, Skechers got kind of famous for knocking off other technology. Like MBT was the big kind of rocker, like had was that a convex rocker to the bottom of it, right? And then Skechers ripped it off and immediately became way more successful with it. Huh. And they've done that multiple times with multiple footwear technology. Yeah, and whatever, good on them. Like they became a really big brand. But they're not considered. You're not going to go into what was that shop we went to in San Luis Obispo and be like, see Skechers on the wall. Like it just even at REI or Dick's, you're probably not going to see Skechers on the wall, right?
Skechers have to be like the coolest thing you can wear if you're a kid, right? Like a hipster kid now. I bet you they are.
You think so? Like ironically, you're wearing Skechers?
Totally. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think people are still like my kids all want to wear like Sambas and Chucks and stuff. Still, they still want to have like cool shoes.
Interesting. Yeah.
Maybe in college. I bet you there's some like kid out there listening to Pink Floyd and rocking Skechers.
Cal Poly is going to be all over the John Deere collab.
But am I missing something? Like when they say trendsetters, are there trendsetters maybe in these other categories that I'm just not aware of? Because I think trendsetters, I think like Met Gala, and like celebrities.
Maybe, but
I
think that is what they kind of mean. Well, influencers, maybe.
Right.
But like,
so
I
like
think
Emma Chamberlain's going to start wearing
I honestly
John Deere shoes.
I honestly feel like I do kind of feel like I wouldn't be that shocked. I feel like this is the moment where like it's not even irony anymore. Maybe a little bit.
That's a good point.
But it's just like I saw like the other day when we were in Slow. Yeah. I think I pointed him out. There was like a very like fashion forward like hipster kid with like the most grandpa keen hikers you have ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
And like he would wear these.
So this is basically the post Crocs world and maybe this is what they're thinking, that it's like, hey, look, anything can catch on. We don't know. Like just put it out there. Let's see what happens.
I think, honestly, I think so. I think the fact that it's John Deere might weirdly draw attention. Like I wouldn't be surprised. This color isn't particularly cool. It'd be hard to pull this off. I'm surprised it's not like the more of the rich green that John Deere is.
I mean, I think the likely outcome is like, this. Look, there's probably like a lot of folks who do construction work and everything who will like these shoes and they'll be comfortable and will wear them around a lot. That's probably likely, but I could definitely see, to your point, an ironic sort of push. All of a sudden, it becomes a TikTok trend to have your John Deere shoes.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, Skechers and John Deere. Can't wait to see how you just take over the world. A couple years from now, when we're all sitting here wearing our John Deere shoes, I'll be eating my words.
I already have some.
You got them early because you're an influencer. That's why.
Exactly.
They seeded you.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, let's tell you what. Let's get into our conversation with Joe, and we can hear a little bit more about what's going on down in the Grand Canyon.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right. Well, we're happy to be welcoming back Paddling Magazine's Joe Potoczak, who is also the official paddling correspondent for the Rock Fight. Welcome back, Joe, man. Great. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys, too. Thanks for having me on.
So a few weeks back, Justin and I spoke about your story that ran on paddlingmag.com about Thomas Robison, not Thomas, Thomas Robison, whose truck was found near Lee's Ferry, which is the launching spot for most expeditions down the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon. You had reported that he had left to head down the river with his dog, presumably. It was not verified, I think, at the time. And potentially aboard a incredibly simple craft of just kind of a handful of lashed-together boards, a very basic emergency-style life jacket, not really the type of flotation device you'd want to have on any river, really. And then this past week, we saw on ABC News, it was reported that Tomas's body had been discovered in the canyon. I guess just to start, since we have you here, like, how did this story even come across your desk? How did you even discover those original details?
Sure. Like most stories that occur, an editor slid in front of my desk and said, "Hey, have you seen this?" And at first, it was these kind of stories materialize on the news and Google alerts and things like that often. So at first, it kind of skeptical if it's something that we should dive into. But as we opened it, see the kind of craft that Tomas was traveling, presumably down the river on, it kind of makes you curious and intriguing. And then when you start to get into, after you seeing some of the stories and news pieces that have been published, the comments that people are making and how much we actually don't know about this person, then that personally intrigued me. I see a guy who, in his beat up truck and his dog are off, on an adventure, and it made me curious because I think like, well, I could easily have been that same person in that situation, right? I can't think of how many times I've done something that people felt was reckless, and I had my dog along with me in my, beat up van, like down some dirt road in the middle of the desert somewhere. And so it absolutely made me more curious to find out like what was going on, who Tomas was, and to help share his story.
Do we know he was on that craft? I mean, how did that even, like, how do we even know that was, because I don't think that was ever really confirmed, right? That was just almost assumed that he was going down on those three boards.
Sure. I think we're still at a point where we're assuming that. This kind of gets into some other details that we received from the Park Service outside of the press releases. They did recover his paddle and his life jacket about 8 miles down the river, about a week after that news story that we published came out. So they did find those items in the river. They did not at that time find the raft. So that's, an assumption until we find out otherwise. A lot of these items that we're reporting, I mean, there's not a great way to confirm at the time. There's an ongoing investigation with the Park Service.
Right. Yeah, that's just the intriguing thing, right? That's to me like the crux of the story, right? Because I think people have done stuff like this before, for sure, right? Plenty of illegal runs down the Grand Canyon, but the fact that you're going out there on that was kind of was interesting.
Sure, it's interesting when I spoke with the PR office at the Grand Canyon National Park, Joelle Baird. She mentioned that in her 12 years at the park, she had never actually heard of an occurrence like this, which I was somewhat surprised. I figured that probably like once or so a year, somebody decides on some random craft to go down the canyon. Also, it seems from talking with other people and seeing some of the online stuff that Tomas had produced, that these boards that he put together as a raft were actually, his artwork in a sense. He was an artist, and these were like repurposed planks of wood or benches that he had carved into shape and had put up places and sold and attempted to sell around Santa Fe and that. So that is essentially what he ended up making his raft out of.
Do you is there any indication that he was a capable paddler or anything like that? Like, was this a hobby of his anyway?
Yeah, so pretty interesting stuff about Tomas. He was a completely competent outdoorsman in a lot of ways. He actually had worked on the river for a few different outfitters at different times in different capacities. I spoke with somebody who worked with him on a motorized river trip on the canyon, and he did the big 30-foot pontoon rafts that people go down, and he was working as crew on one of those boats, and actually was one of his first times doing that. And the guy who I spoke with mentioned how he let Tomas take the rudder and steer the boat through some sections that he wouldn't normally let somebody who hadn't done that before do, and was pretty impressed with his ability to do that. But then also just in general through the years, he had spent a lot of time in the canyon for sure.
What would the river have been like at that point? I mean, I got to think. I don't know a lot about. Well, I don't know a lot about paddling, but I don't know a lot about what the river, the different times of the year where the flow would be high. I would assume spring are going to be relatively high flows. I mean, it's what I'm used to. But is this something that would have been safe in a, even had he been in like a professionally built, boat that you would take down the river, or is this a dangerous endeavor no matter what?
The river level was actually even slightly below normal for spring flows.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't like an extreme conditions kind of scenario. Somebody in a proper craft, a raft or a whitewater kayak, it would have been very much, safe within the term of
interesting.
Safety. Obviously, anytime we step into the water like that, it's an endeavor you got to take seriously. But it was also the section of river. So he had only essentially the body that was recovered was only 6 miles down the river, and that section of river is not anything. There are not many rapids through that section of river. There's a few like riffles, what you would consider on the Grand Canyon, like up to maybe class 3.
Yeah, when we first spoke about it, I definitely was speculating that this is a suicide attempt when you look at the craft, and he's kind of like, hey, someone's just punching out. I referenced Guy Waterman, we forgot his name at the time, who went to the top of a mountain in New Hampshire when he was just done, sat down and, punched out. And I think, to your point about kudos to you for thinking a little more deeply. Like, I'm just connecting the dots. I see this craft. I'm like, he's going down the Grand Canyon. Like, oh, this guy's just thinking of this is it for me. But then you sent me his YouTube channel yesterday, and it's kind of going through some of the videos and what you just referenced about that guide that he was, the person he was guiding with. It was a pretty capable outdoors person, like really seemed to know what he was doing, seemed to have a lot of thoughts, seemed to be definitely, had his quirks, but also, it was a big part of his life. I mean, do you get the sense that this was maybe just an attempt at a really big adventure and just maybe something just went wrong in those first few miles?
Sure. There's a lot of speculation with anything like this. So I want to be careful that,
Sure.
we don't really know what his intention was at the time being. First, I'd say we step back, and I want to just say, as far as ability as an outdoorsman, talking to people so he was actually a member of the Flagstaff outdoor community for decades in Arizona before moving up to Santa Fe. He helped found the rock climbing gym in Flagstaff, Arizona. He helped advocate for trails around Flagstaff. he had, ridden extreme mountain bike trails like the White Line down in Sedona and that. Like, he was a guy who...
No, he rode the White Line?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow. Dang, man.
Like somebody who, like a lot of people around town couldn't keep up with,
Yeah.
And
comfortable with risk, clearly.
Yes. Yeah. And also an extremely kindred person, somebody who was constantly helping other people out, trying to provide people incredible experiences in the outdoors. And so to go from there to where we are now, at some point, it seems like his friends felt through the friends I've spoken with, felt he kind of drifted away. He went through some life circumstances. He ended up selling a property that he had in Flagstaff, eventually found himself up in Santa Fe, living in a yurt, like on kind of a 2.5 acre community with other people on the property and around there in the Santa Fe area. And so a lot of his friends from Flagstaff that I've spoken with so far kind of lost touch with him, throughout the years, and kind of drifted away. So nobody really knows why he went to the Grand Canyon, but it seems like he was an individual who was probably at a lonely point in his life and going off to do something down in the canyon, and we don't really know what the intention was.
It seems like moving away from him specifically, like I feel like I've covered or written a lot of stories about people who make sort of handmade rafts of various shapes and float down various things. Is this a common thing that you guys see? I mean, it feels like this is almost like an adventure trope. Like the somebody, I mean, I've written about people that have sailed across the Atlantic on rafts made of garbage. It feels like this is a. I don't know. How often does this kind of thing happen? Not so much that they die, but I mean, are you guys covering these sorts of things a lot?
So that's interesting. One thing that keeps coming up are these pumpkins that people carve out, and there's this
totally.
world record for how far down a river in a pumpkin have you
that
tried,
kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I've personally taken a Tupperware container, like a Rubbermaid, down a section of river because we needed to get it a few miles downstream in order to transport some materials. So I hopped in there with a paddle, and it's a lot like a short little freestyle whitewater kayak. It's kind of like a cork in the water. So yeah, I paddled like a 50-gallon Tupperware container down some class 1 before. I think in paddling, people do these sorts of things. I mean, people have gone over the Niagara Falls in a barrel. We all know those stories, and more people have made it than not going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. So yeah, people do crazy stuff and different contraptions on the water for sure.
Yeah, I think this is what you're touching on, though, is exactly why we wanted to have you on and have this conversation, right? You referenced, Joe, in our email exchange about, other people making references into the wild. And I mean, these are the stories we tend to come back to, I feel like, in our community more than anything else. Maybe the first example of is, why do you want to, George Mallory, why are you climbing Everest? Oh, because it's there, and it's the, why would you go ride the White Line? Like, I don't know, let's take a bike up there and see if we can ride our bike across that thing. It's a bit of the essence of a lot of the things we talk about that we've kind of, commoditized, and it's become what it's become. But then you get back to these sort of the root of it all stories. I mean, a guy taking his dog down the Grand Canyon, we don't really know what was happening. It's an interesting backstory. Yeah, maybe it could be any number of things, and I kind of feel like this might be one of those stories that a few years from now, we're still bringing back up. It's like another Aaron Ralston or Chris McCandless. It's just I'm just fascinated by the story itself.
Sure. Oh, and yeah, almost everybody I've talked to about this brings up something like Into the Wild, and it's interesting because that kind of brought me to a point to step back and actually look at Into the Wild and Chris McCandless. And we always think of Chris McCandless as being a 20-something-year-old kid, a young man who walked out into the Alaska wilderness, but if you look at who Chris McCandless would be today, if he were still alive, he'd be 56 years old. And Thomas Robison is 50. They said 58 in the news article, but I believe he's actually 59 years old. So you have two people who, at this point in life, would be around the same age.
Interesting. Yeah.
And this is maybe a slightly dark look at all this, but I think a lot of times with something like Into the Wild, what we see, outdoorsy adventure types, is we see this person who said screw society and went off into the wilderness. But if you look at Krakauer's work from book to book, a big part of his themes are actually these extreme corruptions of system, right? And egos and victims of all that. And starting with Chris McCandless, it was, we found out later on, it was a lot of family troubles that kind of like, like essentially a collapse of what we look at as a healthy family structure. He did that again in the guiding industry in the Thin Air, and Under the Banner of Heaven was based on extreme religion. So you just see this theme over and over again in his work. And then I look at, again, going from the Chris McCandless being 56 today, and then seeing a guy like Tomas who's 59, and his friends seeming like he drifted away. It's this aspect of he did all these really awesome adventure pursuits and was this extremely competent outdoor person. But then you have to wonder about the some of the stuff that we see today with illnesses of despair and loneliness and where society's at. And it raises me to ask the question, like, is this another form of a corruption, a collapse of a societal system? Like their friends don't see that they need help, or they don't know how to find help. And I guess that's kind of where it leads me.
Is interesting because we tend to romanticize that kind of thing. I mean, the whole like when Colin and I first started talking about the story, even if it was a decision that like I'm going to go out and I don't really care if I come back, like there's a part of I don't know, I think there's a part of any of us that spend a lot of time outdoors and always wonder about what's over the next mountain or what's around the next bend. Like there's a romance to that, right? Like I'm just going to kind of put my hands in nature and see where it takes me, but that's probably a place that you don't really come to unless you've got some other issues, like deeper issues that are going on. So, but it is interesting that it does seem like my first thought was I want to celebrate this kind of thing. Like more people should be doing this. Like, just like, screw it. I'm just gonna go see if I can get this raft down the Grand Canyon. Like that's a cool way to live. I mean, I love that idea. I mean, how often do you really take a chance like that at any other point in your life? I mean. I've made a couple surfboards that I've surfed. That's probably the closest thing, But like I've never just been like, I'm gonna do this crazy thing and just see if it works. I mean I do. I mean there's something to be said for that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder. You think about. It's also the size of the craft and how experienced he was. He could definitely. Was it a planned adventure? I'm going to go and I'm going to float. I can carry it a little bit if I need to. Like there's ways for me to kind of move around the canyon and see how long I can go, or maybe it was something else. But it might be one of those things where we never know. And honestly, in this world, in this age, when we kind of know everything at the touch of a button, it's kind of. I think it's good to continue to have stories like this too. Maybe this is just the way it's going to be.
Nothing wrong with a little mystery.
Any final thoughts on that, on Joe? Is there anything else that you plan on pursuing or following up on, or do you feel like it's kind of we know what we know and that's kind of where we're at?
Well, we're certainly going to publish another article in Paddling Magazine that shares what the updated news is and also what we've gathered about Tomas. And I think we'll keep an ear to the ground and see what else arises to see what we learn, and continue to. What it seems like we should be shared with the world about him, and so they just have a better understanding of the person who was in a news story to know who they were and what they were up to.
Well, Joe, thanks again for coming on. I mean, I hope it's tragic circumstances, regardless of what Tomas's intentions were. But again, just one of these stories, kind of like Justin was saying, that these are just the stories that kind of. I don't know, piques our interest, I feel like, when we do these things, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want to necessarily go out that way, but there's, I don't know, it's something about it, just some romance there. So, yeah, always going to be drawn to these stories.
Yeah, well, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it, and I agree there are worse things than being on the river.
Right, yeah.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, man, we can wrap it up there. Anything else going on that we need to talk about before we punch out of here?
It's almost summer. Getting pretty excited.
God, right?
Getting pretty cool.
Memorial Day's coming up. All right, man. Well, that's the show. Thanks for listening, everybody. Well, thanks for Joe Potoczak for coming on. I think it's Potoczak. I always get it wrong. Sorry, Joe. But thanks for coming on and talking about that. The Rock Fight's a production of Rock Fight LLC. For Justin Hausman, I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. Here to take us out, it's Kristen Makes. He's going to sing the song that he always sings at the end of every one of our episodes. It's called the Rock Fight Fight Song. And we'll see you next time, Rock Fighters. Rock Fight!